And to this breast is a very important thing, because as a primary physician of the woman, Madam has rightly said, they always come to us. And as a gynecologist, it is our duty towards our patient to guide them and to refer them in timely for this if they are having any cancer. Because we all know that the early breast cancer can be treated and patient can have the full life. And the first speaker today, we have Dr. Nirja Chawla, who is MD from Delhi, and she is a gold medalist and very several distinction and the university first prize. Not only that, she is the vice president of Foxy Northern Region and former consultant as a PGI Chandigarh also. She has many laurel to her, and she has a passion for and the pioneer of the endoscopic surgery in the region of the Chandigarh and the North India. And she has a special interest in the gynae endocrinology, infertility, and menopausal medicine. And one word from me for the madam: whenever I see her, she is always having a smiling face. So, not between, standing between you and the academics. Over to you, Dr. Nirja, to start your deliberation.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody, and a very good afternoon to all my esteemed chairpersons, Ragini, Alka, and Vinu, and a great thank you, and I'm grateful to the COGS and Dr. Umesh and Bhavna for inviting me to share about screening for breast cancer today. So the first thing that we want to know when we are screening for breast cancer is, why do we want to screen? Does it really help? So, what we find is that breast cancer is a leading cause of cancer and cancer related deaths among women. The mortality has been significantly reduced, 5-year survivals have improved. And the reasons for this is essentially because of improved treatments, risk reductions, chemoprophylaxis, and early detection and screening. Now, it is this early detection and screening which is the purview of my talk today. So there was a very interesting debate online, and it was based on a RCT that should women wait till the breast lump is palpable before treatment, because many of them may be indolent, like the ones in prostate cancers. But it was resoundingly refuted by many scientific organizations, including WHO, which said that early detection was the primary way of prevention, and small and non-palpable ones are more treatable, and the prognosis is much better. So screening is very important. Now have a look at this slide of risk factors, and please excuse me if it is very crowded. There are times when I like to look at everything in absolute totality, look at the whole picture. And when you do that, sometimes you can find a method in the madness, and it helps you when you are sitting down in the clinic. So at that time, what we do know is that breast cancer, the biggest risk factors is increasing age and the female gender. 99% of breast cancers occur in females, and that is because of the female hormone estrogen. That is the reason why early menarche, late menopause, when they're more exposed to estrogens, these two are risk factors. Nulliparity and prolonged interval between menarche and first pregnancy have an increased risk of hormone dependent cancers. Then you also have family history, where you have inheritable reasons for that, known deleterious gene mutations, some ethnicities, and other factors which could be there with even other cancers. So, how does one assess the individual cancer risk? So, you need to take a history, and then any potentially increased risk that you find, you assess it further. To help us in this, we have breast cancer risk assessment tools, of which the Gale model, which was brought forward by Dr. Gale in 1989, is the most validated and widely used. But it had a few drawbacks, like it couldn't differentiate between those populations for which it had been validated and other ethnic populations. and it couldn't do it for BRCA. It couldn't find out for you tamoxifen eligibility. So to correct all these things, we have GALE Model 2, which is used by US FDA, and the BCRA breast cancer risk assessment tool by the National Cancer Institute, and you can find this on their website, as well as CARE, which has also been modified by Dr. Gale of his original model of 1989. So this is an excellent model which you can use from the net, and we have other tools also to help you. So why is risk assessment useful? Because you can identify people who will benefit from genetic counseling and enhanced screening, more frequent screening, and risk reduction strategies. What about the risk of developing invasive breast cancer? You will find that there are four main categories to this. There is a BRCA, if there is an untested family member of someone who had BRCA, if there is a Hodgkin's disease radiation to the chest, especially between 10 to 14 years of age, and a lifetime cancer risk based on these risk assessment tools like GALE, which I talked about, if they are more or equal than 20. So these people, you can put them in a category of more than average risk or high risk, and you will actually screen for breast cancer differently in these two risk areas. So, what is the goal of screening? It is that you are actually looking at healthy, asymptomatic women. You are trying to detect a preclinical disease to reduce risk of advanced disease. So, there has been a lot of emotion on the internet and a lot of research articles. A lot of people are going very emotionally when to start, when to stop, what should be the frequency, what should be the modality. So, there is a lot of heat involved in this, but we will attend to that as we go on. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is the screening modalities, and just take it that in all the research data that we have, mammography wins hands down. It is a primary tool for breast cancer screening, and it's a population based screening tool. Now, why is this word population important? Because you can have other screening tools like an MRI, but they cannot be used as population tools because they are expensive, 10 times more than mammography, and they have very low specificities and very high false positive. So mammography is a primary tool. This is based on several reviews and studies, and it is known to decrease the mortality more in the older age group. What does this mean? This means that it is more efficient as a screening tool in the older age group. We will come to reasons for that because there has to be some reason for everything. So what you need to do is, like, you could, like I said, use MRI as a screening tool, but it doesn't work that way. Or we have very often used breast self examination, clinical breast examinations, but these are associated with a lot of false positives and a lot of anxiety. In fact, with all these things, after they have been evaluated, people were still anxious even when they turned out to be negative. So these are the various groups who have had a lot of fun on the net giving their own recommendations. And I'm not even listing their names because you can figure out their names. And I'm not going to list this one said this one said that, and wait for you to figure out what should be the best. To my pleasant surprise, I found that the ACOG in 2011 and then reaffirmed in 2019, it actually went through the recommendations of three major organizations, and it reviewed all that data and all the evidences for it and came out with a combined kind of a statement, which is what we are going to look at today. One very important aspect of the ACOG guidelines or the position paper is about shared decision making. Whom is it being shared? What will the physician do? The physician tells the risks of something, this modality, this frequency, and the benefits, and the patient tells her concerns. So at every point, it is a shared decision making between you and your patient. So if you have found that your patient is average risk, as per a previous slide, when to start is influenced by many factors, but the age is 50 years, definitely. This is there in all the recommendations. So this you take as 50 years to start screening program for breast. But look at the arguments in favor of starting at the age of 40 years, because the earlier you screen, the more lives you will save. There is no scientific justification for delay. These are not my interpretations. These have all been picked up from literature. They all have a scientific basis. And there is no data, zero, that supports that 50 years is the threshold where you should start breast cancer screening. In fact, most people feel that starting late has actually been an economic decision. I have always suspected this. And I suspect the British systems also, where they do something because everything has to be paid for by the state. Look, 1/6 of breast cancer is diagnosed before 50 years, and most of the aggressive cancers in India, at least, are in the younger age group. And it is the younger women whom you want to save, because losing them is a huge loss. So 40 years is something that you could offer the screening, but by 50, definitely you should be screening them. So whether you should do annual or every 2 years, now the argument against doing annual was that there is a mammography radiation induced cancers. So how can you do an annual? Now the thing is that it has been now found that the mortality reduction in the younger population is 60 times more. The breast cancer is reduced, the mortality is decreased than the risk of dying from a mammography radiation induced cancer. So the younger population definitely go for 1 yearly, and in the older population, equal or more than 55 years, you do it 2 yearly. Why? Because mammography, the screening tool, becomes much more efficient. The breasts are less dense, and the harms of doing annual screening doesn't give you any real benefit. So this is how you can plan your frequency. And when should you stop? Like 75 years, so you should continue. And at 75, you can decide that if you can stop at 75 if that patient has less than 10 years of life left, which will be dependent on her comorbidities. But if you feel that a patient is very healthy, patients even up to the age of 84, 85, I have seen in literature, being screened for breast cancer because they were very healthy and life expectancy, you cannot deny them the screening of breast cancer if they are healthy otherwise. But there can be some patients who refuse further evaluation. Now, this is something akin to my dad, for example. He had a bypass surgery, and then uh, he had blocked coronaries again after 10 years. And then he refused to have an angiography, saying that if the angiography shows that I need a repeat procedure or repeat bypass or a stenting, I'm not going to do it. Now, if you have any such patient like that, then it makes no sense to screen them and tell them you have this risk and then they don't do. You understand? So if they refuse to do, then there is no point doing it any further. Just a minute. So we want to look at, of course, we know that mammography is the best as a screening tool. And clinical breast examination, it's not a very good idea, but you could use it, say, in average risk asymptomatic younger people, younger than 40 years, 1 to 3 yearly, or more than 40 in some cases, along with mammography, never alone. But in high risk patients who are symptomatic, definitely they are symptomatic. So you are definitely going to do a clinical breast examination and evaluation with mammography. And self-examination of the breast is not recommended. In fact, in 2009, the United States Preventive Services Task Force recommended against teaching of the breast self-examination. What they said that it causes more harm than good. So don't teach. What the patient should be aware of is breast awareness. What is the definition of this? This means that you are teaching them to be alert to the normal appearance and the feel of their own breasts, about pain, mass, new discharges, redness in the breast area, and it is not a systematic or a routine examination like a BSc. This is important. Breast awareness is important because literature has found that 71% of younger women and 50% of older women have diagnosed their breast masses themselves. So, breast awareness is very important. What to do for dense breasts? What exactly are dense breasts? So, whenever there's an increased cellularity, they appear dense and light on the mammogram. But when there's fatty tissue, then they appear translucent and dark. So, can you make out that when they are dense, it will mask the lesions of that what you find on mammography? For many years, this is the reason I used to give to patients that 10 breasts, I'm alert, it doesn't mean anything, it just masks. But that is not true now. Not only does it mask the lesions, but there is an increased risk of breast cancer, and therefore it is suggested that for dense breasts, do mammography at 40 years of age, and it is more common in younger women. If dense, you may require frequent supplemental examinations, but they are not evidence based. The only evidence is for MRI with mammography if there are dense breasts. If they are not dense at 40 years of age, it is possible that you might do your next mammography at the age of 45 or menopause or whatever, and or at 50 years. This is what is known as the hybrid approach, which you can sometimes use. If you find that you have a high risk population, as we discussed earlier, such people will not have screening like an average risk population. It will be earlier, more frequent, and may require supplemental screening too. So before we go on to hereditary, inheritable causes of breast, please allow me to share with you a little baseline about hereditary breast ovarian cancer syndrome, because this will make our understanding much better. So this is an inherited cancer susceptibility syndrome. It affects multiple family partners who have breast, ovarian cancers, and others. See, tubal and primary peritoneal are included with ovarian or both. So this is in 85% of the times due to the breast cancer gene, which is known as BRCA, and 15% by other genes. These genes are responsible for the repair of the DNA, and they are known as, actually they are tumor suppressor genes. Now understand, if there is a mutation in these genes, it will predispose the patient to cancers. Even men have BRCA mutations with increased breast and prostate cancers, and both men and women, because of BRCA, can have pancreatic cancers. So, who should have genetic screening? All people with a personal or family history of cancer with features suggestive of hereditary cancer. Don't look very closely at this area, just flow with me. So, what would be the features of hereditary cancer? A cancer occurring at an early age, multiple relatives having cancer, bilateral breast cancers, relatives having both breast and ovarian cancers in the same person, and a male breast cancer, and of course, a particular ethnic community. So, this is the National Comprehensive Cancer Network criteria for the HPOC testing. Now, please do excuse me, even this is a very crowded slide, but I love this slide. And there is a reason for that. And I will pause for a minute if you people can take screenshots or take it a download from the net. It'll be very nice, because this is so detailed, and the beauty of these criteria lies in these details. Can you appreciate that if you have such clear details laid down for you, it becomes so much easier to be able to assess which people need genetic testing. So the people who need genetic testing are a blood relative of somebody who has a known mutation, personal histories of breast cancers with any one of these following, of which, look, people miss the male breast cancer, and personal histories, say, of epithelial ovarian cancers, pancreatic cancers, and a family history of cancer. So when you have this table on this thing on your list on your table, it becomes, you don't have to commit it to memory. Just go down it and find out which people need genetic testing. What about children less than 18 years of age? What I found was, because this was a question which did come to me, that genetic testing is not recommended by all professional societies because you don't have risk reduction strategies meant for young children. And children are unlikely to develop a cancer related to a BRCA variant. So you have a BRCA positive test. What does it mean? So what are you going to tell your patient? You will tell them that the prevalence of BRCA1 is much more than BRCA2. And BRCA1, look at this, it is associated with huge risks of breast cancer, contralateral breast cancer, ovarian cancer, as compared to risks in a general population and risks in carriers of the BRCA2 mutation. So this is what you will tell them. Also, they have an increased risk of prostate and pancreatic cancer, and you need to increase their awareness and they need to be screened. BRCA positive means screen the siblings and screen the children who have a 50% chance of having BRCA. So, what to do if the BRCA is positive? Look, we are talking of unaffected people. The purview of my talk is not those people who are affected with breast cancer. Ours is a breast cancer screening strategies, and the talk is totally focused on that. So, if the patient is unaffected and she is BRCA positive, so what would you recommend? You can look at chemo prevention or risk reduction surgeries. Again, this is not the purview of my talk. Or you can do enhanced screening, especially if she refuses or delays risk reduction. This is the main thing. Remember that the goals of screening are different from risk reduction. And here we are speaking about screening. So breast cancer screening program for BRCA1 and 2 gene mutations is that you can start clinical breast examination at 25 years of age, or whenever at that time later on, whenever you detect it, every 6 to 12 months. Between the ages of 25 to 29, the best thing to do is an MRI. If it is not available, then do mammogram. After the age of 30 till the age of 75, you have to do both mammogram and breast MRI. So a baseline imaging with mammography and breast MRI is recommended. And then you alternate these two investigations every 6 months to not miss any interval cancers. Mammography alone or mammography plus ultrasound is not optimal. So a patient turns out to be not BRCA positive. She's BRCA negative. Then what should you do? But she has all that family history. You found that she has higher risk and all that. So suggest to her a multi-gene panel testing and do a surveillance according to her family history, whatever cancers are there. If you don't know, it's neither positive nor negative, probably it's a variant which has not been detected. So scientists are continuously working on this. Tell the patient this and keep the patient updated about future research where whatever gene mutation she has, we come to know whether it's risk or not risk, you can share with her. So here I would like to talk to you about the multi-gene panel testing. This includes BRCA and other gene mutations. So obviously the probability of identifying existing hereditary cancer syndromes increases. When would you like to use it? When you feel that there is more than one gene involved, or if there is a history, very strong history of an inheritable cancer, but your BRCA testing is coming out negative. It is possible that it may replace BRCA testing in future. But it is expensive. So I just wanted to touch on this screening for other cancers. So you have a BRCA positive and you know she has high history of ovarian cancer. So don't do any routine screening. This looks so odd. But yeah, screening is not the answer in such a patient with BRCA positive and history of ovarian cancers, because you need to do a risk reduction surgery. You need to do a screening only for the short term, where you do concurrently a transvaginal sonography and CA-125 every 6 months till you do the risk reduction surgery. There are other cancers associated with BRCA. So those also you will need to screen, but this is not based on strong or robust evidence. Then there are other variants of breast with other cancer syndromes. So breast cancer screening, plus you add other screens and do take the help of a genetic counselor. So for example, you have a P53 mutation, so you want to look at colon cancers, or you have a Cowden syndrome, and you want to look at endometrial and cancers and thyroid. So in this way, this is a very incomplete list, but whenever you have any such other gene mutations, check up what syndrome it's fitting into, and then you will get the guidelines for how to screen that patient. So finally, just a little recap. Evaluate all your gynae patients routinely. I put a capital R here deliberately. Routinely, by simple personal medical history and a family history. Use uh, breast cancer, this should be C, breast cancer risk assessment tools, sorry for this, Gale model 2, BRCA tools, or the care models. If there is average risk, screen accordingly. If there are dense breasts or there is a high risk, to enhance screening earlier, frequent or supplemented with automated breast ultrasounds. If there is suspicion of inherited cancer, depending on family or other histories, to detailed risk assessment by the NCCN criteria. After this risk assessment, do a genetic testing. If BRCA is positive, do risk reduction surgeries and screen only for short term till your risk reduction surgery. If it is BRCA negative, do a multi-gene panel and screen according to family history. But at all points, remember to do a shared decision making. Counsel the patient at every step. Thank you all. Thank you for a very patient hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Nirja. I was really भूल ही गई थी सुनने में कि मुझे भी आकर के वापस आपको थैंक यू बोलना है. एंड सच अ वंडरफुल वे यू हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड एवरीथिंग, सच अ सिंपल स्लाइड and message is so clear to everyone. Specifically a line about a primary prevention is preclinical disease. These words really have an impact, and screening modalities are also explained by you very clearly, and the message which should go to everyone is that India is having a younger population affected by the disease, and the more the younger the population, the disease is more aggressive. In our hospital, the youngest person whom we have operated is 22-year-old girl, and even in males, this breast cancer is rising. So this, your criteria of the SPGs testing, BRCA, and especially multi-gene panel is a very important thing. At least if we don't order, we should understand how to guide our patient. It is very, very necessary to understand for each and every gynecologist. Thank you so much for giving and such a clear messages to all of us and enlightening us.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Bhavna, for inviting me. Now over to you.